Let's talk about Xbox Series XL, a more powerful Xbox Series X refresh. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video I would like to talk about Xbox Series X refresh, but a bit different refresh from the one that leaked a couple of months ago, which really doesn't really come with any specs changes except more storage, right? That's pretty much it. Yes, usually refreshed console comes with like in a smaller form factor, some changes to the actual look of the console, and that particular one that leaked a couple of months ago would be, digital only also. So that leak, is believed to have been not the leak have been cancelled, but that console, it is believed that it has been cancelled. So who knows, maybe it's not coming anymore. But what I think Microsoft should consider at least doing is to, yes, do a refresh, but specs refresh. And I'm not talking about like a completely new console like PlayStation 5 Pro, which will come with extra hardware and RDNA 3 technology and whatever, right? I don't even think that Microsoft needs that, and I will actually talk about it in a minute. All they need is just higher specs, higher clock speeds, and pretty much the same technology, right? Now, what I'm talking about here is a thing called binning, right? Okay, so a couple of days ago, I spoke about the next-gen Xbox being potentially a hybrid console, and in that video, I mentioned that Xbox Series X was created with game streaming and cloud in mind, right? So these Xbox Series X blades have been created in a way that they work well in a server rack, right? So it's all about the power and that kind of stuff, right? So that's one of the reasons, in my opinion, why Microsoft kept really the clock speeds in that console very conservative, especially when it comes to the GPU, right? So what I think they should do, keep making Xbox Series X blades with the current specs, no problem there, right? Shrink the actual die, no problem there. Use 6 nanometers technology. That won't cost you really much to redesign because it's very similar to 7 nanometers technology. But what I think they should do with the console chips, so the ones that are being shipped to, the Xbox Series X console, assembly lines, they should bin the best chips, and they should make, an Xbox Series XL. I mean, that's my name for the console, because what binning do is that when you have the best chips there, and that process is being used in like a PC space, you can clock the chip higher, and also a lot of times you can actually use the extra compute units, right? So you could actually create a console with extra 4 compute units, that extra power, that's like a couple of % more raw power straight away. And also, if you raise the clocks at least a little bit, and I'm not talking about like 500 megahertz, right? I think the GPU of Xbox Series X right now runs at around 1825 megahertz. I don't know, upclock it to 950, maybe 2 gigahertz if it's possible, right? That would give a huge boost in terms of performance. So if you combine the extra 4 compute units, thanks to the binning, right? And then higher clock speeds, anything between 950 to 2 gigahertz, then you get a very, very powerful console, right? So, extra 2 or 3 teraflops here and there actually would make a difference, but also higher clock speeds would actually improve data flow within the console too. Also, they at least should consider also the use of faster memory. So same memory setup, still 16 gigabytes, still 300 and whatever bit bus they use there, but use the higher, faster memory chips. That would give them boost in terms of memory bandwidth too. So overall, you would get not like a new powerhouse, but you could get a console that would be like maybe 30% more powerful. Obviously, upclock the CPU too, right? So 30-40% more powerful, right? So that kind of console without much work really would be pretty close to what PlayStation 5 Pro actually is probably going to be offering this year, right? So, and there's a couple of things, like 6 nanometers, that's one thing, and the going with 6 nanometers don't require redesigning of the chip, right? So that's a good thing, and you get extra power efficiency, so you can upclock you can run the clocks much higher. Also, plays Xbox Series X power efficiency. I mean, actually, cooling system is pretty efficient, and I think it could do with much higher clock speeds, no problem, even with a current setup, right, on 7 nanometers. So overall, you are getting much better console for fraction of extra money. They would probably have to spend a little bit more on faster memory chips, but I don't think that would cost them much, right? And rest of it would be pretty much the same. It would make no difference for developers, because what they would get is just more powerful Xbox Series X, right? I mean, it would be pretty much the same setup. Coding games would be pretty much the same, but most games these days use dynamic resolution scaling, or they use all kinds of different performance modes. So they would not even have to worry much about optimizing for these consoles, because if they made a game for Xbox Series X, the base specs that we've got right now, and a game would be 60 frames per second, right? No problem there. But for example, it would run at 1440p. Well, then on Xbox Series XL, that game would be locked to 60 frames per second, but also would take advantage of extra power. So the game engine automatically could run at much higher resolutions. And, in some games it doesn't really matter, because games look pretty good anyway. But in games like Lords of the Fallen, for example, I played the game the other day. I was just curious, if they updated the graphics and optimized that game better. And you know what? Generally speaking, performance is all right. I'm still needs some extra work there. But the biggest problem, even on Xbox Series X with Lords of the Fallen, but this can be applied to other games too, is the resolution. It's just in performance mode. Yes, it's 60 frames per second, but it runs at very low resolution. Whether that's 1080p or 1200p, I don't know, but it's not sharp at all. So Xbox Series XL with a little bit faster CPU, a little bit more powerful GPU, 30-40%, maybe 30 probably, and a little bit extra memory bandwidth, I'm sure that game, thanks to the dynamic nature of the resolution scaling in that game and many other games, that game would just look much better because it would be much sharper. So, generally speaking, even though it would be a sort of a new console, but not really. So from developers' perspective, that would not bother them at all, right? And we kind of had a similar situation last generation. Not sure if you remember, Xbox One S was actually slightly more powerful than the VCR Xbox One, the black one, the original one. Because what they did there, because that console came with HDR support. I'm talking about Xbox One S, so the slim model. It came out with HDR support, and what Microsoft said that they had to raise the clock speeds of the GPU a little bit so the console could handle HDR coding or decoding, whatever, right? But in essence, not all the power went to HDR, and in reality, games would run anything between 3 to 7% better when it comes to performance in a GPU limited scenarios than the original Xbox One, right? And that was just like a slight upclock to the GPU, right? No memory changes, no CPU changes. But if they went with a slightly faster CPU, slightly faster GPU, unlock extra compute units in the binned chips, and add slightly faster memory chips, and like I said, 25-30% more power and efficiency and performance, that would actually be a cool console to have, and probably wouldn't require a lot of engineering and money from Microsoft. They could even sell it in the current, form factor. I wouldn't mind, but like I said, I would buy it, and it would be another console that, like similar console. I'm not sure, remember, but actually Nintendo went extra mile with it. Remember Nintendo DS and DXL? The cool thing about Nintendo DXL was the fact that it not only had slightly faster better specs, so actually games actually ran better on that console, but it did offer bigger screen, because DS was a handheld. So it's still the same console from developers' perspective, right? So same dev kit, documentation, technology, and everything, just slightly faster clock speeds. And in Nintendo's DXL scenario, they went with a bigger screen, right? So the games just felt and run better, right? So listen, just an idea. I don't think that would cost Microsoft a lot of money. The only problem I see is that Microsoft may not necessarily be too interested in that, because that probably wouldn't sell them too many consoles anyway. Maybe initially, but on the flip side, that Xbox Series XL, I still call it XL, would be pretty close to what PlayStation 5 Pro is probably going to offer, and not more powerful, but close, and that would be a good PR move in my opinion. They wouldn't be the most powerful console out there, but it would be they would be close up there still, because Xbox Series X has been created with that wide architecture in mind. I'm talking about more compute units. It comes with 52, just unlock extra 4 and you've got 56, and later it's just all about the cooling system and clock speeds, really, right? And I know that PlayStation 5 will invest in extra hardware inside. Apparently, the GPU for PlayStation 5 Pro is supposed to be RDNA 3 based, or at least some features. But the problem with extra tech is just like usually not many developers are using it. And even right now, developers are not using all the current console stack, really. So I don't think that Xbox needs extra tech on top of what they've got already. Just upclock the console, adjust the cooling system if necessary. And I'm not really an engineer, but maybe use 6nm chips for better power efficiency and you're done, right? I mean, I know it sounds easy and it's a little bit more, there would be some work involved in that, but hey, why not? Like, do some testing internally and see how that goes. But anyway, guys, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about it, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.